So going back to when SVB was taken into FDIC receivership, when that happened, what really the first question was is whose deposits are they holding and what was the nature of the exposure? And one of the things that was disclosed very shortly afterwards is that Circle had USDC reserves in SVB, and that was approximately 3.3 billion that they were holding in reserve for the USDC stablecoin. And if we recall, they had about 40 billion in circulation of that stablecoin at that time. So roughly 8-ish%. And so folks started doing the math, and we immediately saw USDC trade off the dollar peg, the breaking of the buck, so to speak. So as we think about it as a dollar on a blockchain or as a stablecoin, now we have a question about its ongoing viability and its ongoing utility to maintain the peg to the dollar. But what happened very soon afterwards was a few things. One, the FDIC announced that it would cover all deposits. Recall the core issue here was if you were in excess of the 250K of FDIC insurance, you potentially could be at risk when a bank gets taken into receivership. By saying they'll cover all deposits, we knew all 3.3 billion would be covered. And so very shortly thereafter, the buck was reclaimed and the USDC value reclimbed back to that dollar. But I think the bigger, more interesting takeaway was they moved that money to Bank of New York Mellon. Bank of New York Mellon is a qualified custodian. It's an absolute leader in the space. And that's a different regime. So instead of the funds being in a bank subject to FDIC insurance, it's actually a security in a money market fund held custodially for the benefit of the owner. So that is a different kind of safety and soundness, a different kind of reserve. So that's one of the things that has happened as a result of what we've seen since these bank receiverships began. The first thing to think about is how reliable is the underlying digital currency? How reliable is it to maintain the peg to the dollar? And one of the main things to think about is the reserve and how it is backed. Because of course, there's the notion of something backed by fiat currency, and is it backed by dollars in a bank account, or is it backed by short-term treasuries and other money-like things held within a qualified custodian? And we saw that those treasuries and money-like things held by a qualified custodian offers some advantages because you're not subject to the 250,000 cap for FDIC insurance. And you have this ability to know that it's custodially held for the benefit of the owner. So that backing will keep to the buck in a more secure and reliable way. You can look at USDC as something that discloses its backing. You can look at something like Tether, where they may not have been as transparent over time, and they have said that they no longer have commercial paper and other things that are more risky that are backing Tether, but it hasn't been fully disclosed yet, at least to the best of my knowledge.